It's hard to see past this, I'm not going to lie. In this moment, it's just so heavy. When your life is broadcasted out there in these headlines, it's like the end of the world.
She was standing on the Oscar red carpet Sunday night, smiling for cameras, at the peak of her career. Nobody in that room knew a police department would confirm a domestic violence investigation by Monday morning. Nobody knew her Hulu production had shut down. Her 2-year-old son was in the middle of a custody war, and her entire world was unraveling behind the smile. The headlines told you part of the story. You are about to see all of it. The week everything collapsed. Just 5 days before the season 22 premiere of The Bachelorette, the Draper City Police Department in Utah confirmed to People magazine that there is an open domestic assault investigation involving Taylor Frankie Paul and her ex-boyfriend, Dakota Mortensen. Dakota is the father of her youngest child and appears alongside her on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. In the same week, Taylor was supposed to be celebrating the biggest professional moment of her career. The entire foundation of that life was cracking underneath her. The production shutdown hit first. 3 sources confirmed to NBC News that Season 5 filming had been halted completely. But here is what most coverage missed. The shutdown was not a quiet network decision made in Los Angeles. When Hulu executives flew to Utah to observe filming, what they walked into was serious enough that a week-long break was called on the spot. When new information kept surfacing during that break, the cast told production directly that they would refuse to return to set unless Hulu took concrete action. This was not producers making a call. This was a cast drawing a line. It took a lot to even get here tonight, just kind of trying to keep up, if that makes sense, but show up at the same time. The allegations run in both directions and both sides claim to have evidence. Sources connected to Taylor say Dakota became physically aggressive after a drink spilled in his car, then called police and claimed Taylor was the aggressor. Sources connected to Dakota tell TMZ that Taylor allegedly choked him, ripped his necklace off in front of their son Ever, and threw his phone at a wall. Dakota has reportedly been sharing video footage with his inner circle that allegedly shows multiple incidents, and Utah authorities have already reviewed it. Both Taylor and Dakota were separately ordered by the Division of Child and Family Services to undergo psychological evaluations. As of mid-March 2026, neither evaluation had taken place. Then came the screenshot. Reality blogger Reality Steve posted what appeared to be a call log showing Taylor's number dialing Dakota's over 150 times in a single 90-minute window in January 2026, more than a month after Bachelorette filming had ended. Dakota's roommate allegedly sent the image. TMZ's sources said Dakota actually expects that level of contact from Taylor and welcomes it. 2 people, 1 call log, 2 entirely different stories. I think it was no secret that we did have an addictive cycle, and at this point right now, the answer would be no. But did I have that in the past? Absolutely. It is a secret to nobody. Behind the police reports and the Bachelorette press tour was a business worth millions, built by Mormon moms in matching sets, run like a real corporation, and about to collapse because of the same woman who built it. The million-dollar machine behind the matching sets. Most people looked at Mom Talk and saw Mormon women doing TikTok dances for fun. They were not doing it for fun. What Taylor Frankie Paul built from scratch in 2020 was a legitimate media operation with lawyers, agents, and 6-figure contracts running underneath an aesthetic so polished that the internet never suspected it. Taylor recruited Whitney Levitt, Michaela Matthews, and Macy Neely to form the original group. She alone accumulated over 4 million TikTok followers. The Mom Talk hashtag generated billions of combined views. The brand deals have been way up. My husband's entire yearly salary is how much I make on one brand deal. When the money became visible on camera, it shocked even people who follow the influencer industry. Whitney Levitt disclosed she received $20,000 for a single Instagram post promoting a personal massager. Macy Neely confirmed she and Whitney both secured a partnership worth $75,000 for a single year-long contract with one brand. For women whose public identity was built entirely on faith, family, and choreography, the financial reality sitting underneath the wholesome content was almost unrecognizable. Taylor's personal net worth estimates range from $400,000 to $3 million depending on the source, reflecting the stacked nature of creator income. Brand deals, Hulu fees, merchandise, podcast appearances, and now Bachelorette earnings all accumulating at once. What made Mom Talk unlike any other influencer operation was a power struggle. The show eventually had no choice but to put on camera. Taylor was the founder who had created every opportunity these women were now benefiting from. And yet, on paper, everyone received identical contracts. That equality became a fault line when the show became a hit. Cast member Demi Engemann allegedly proposed cutting Jesse Draper and Dakota from the cast entirely so the remaining women could split a larger budget share. The rest of the cast found out, and the fallout was immediate. Demi was willing to let Jesse go off the show for more money. If anyone has the right to be paid the most, it is me, and I have never even asked for that. Season 3 brought different chaos. Whitney Levitt walked off mid-filming, not over money, but over what she wanted instead. Michaela Matthews revealed on camera that Whitney had demanded Oscars tickets and a scripted television role. She got neither, and she left. She returned part-way through the season, later admitting she came back primarily to secure a Dancing with the Stars audition. She got it and was cast on season 34. By February 2026, all 8 core cast members had been elevated to executive producer credits following an Emmy nomination. Disney was quietly sitting on one number it was not publicizing. Secret Lives of Mormon Wives was outperforming The Kardashians on Hulu. The business was thriving, the credits were freshly earned, and then the woman who built the whole empire sat down in front of a phone camera in 2022 and burned it to the ground in one afternoon. The live stream that broke the internet. In May 2022, Taylor Frankie Paul went live on TikTok to announce her divorce from Tate Paul. And then she kept talking. She explained that she and Tate had been engaged in soft swinging, an arrangement where couples in the friend group could have romantic interactions with each other as long as no one went all the way without their spouse present. Then she said the sentence that set off months of chaos. No one is innocent. Everyone has hooked up with everyone in this situation. I have made out with all of the husbands and other things. We had an agreement, and I did step out of that agreement. The second it goes behind without each other, you have stepped out of the agreement. And I did that. She did not name names. She did not need to. Within hours, Mormon influencer TikTok was in complete meltdown. Couples who had built their brands on Sunday church posts and matching family outfits were suddenly the subject of national coverage. Multiple denials went out immediately. Several would later be proven false. In November 2024, a mom toker named McKenna Gibbons posted then deleted a series of videos confirming she and her husband were the other couple in the original arrangement. Gibbons alleged that Taylor and her husband developed feelings for each other beyond what the group had agreed on, met in secret, had an intimate relationship, and kept seeing each other after promising repeatedly to stop. Miranda McWhorter, who joined the cast in Season 2, also eventually confirmed she and ex-husband Chase had been involved in the wider arrangement. Swinging is such a scandal headline. But it was also a very traumatic time in my life. That was one of my rock-bottom points. I lost my family and my husband. It is so much deeper than that to me. What most coverage missed entirely is the clinical reality Taylor was navigating at the same time. In November 2023, she shared results from formal psychological testing showing diagnoses of major PTSD, anxiety, ADHD, and flagged bipolar indicators. Her therapist noted that bipolar disorder typically activates in the 20s, and that Taylor's timeline matched precisely. 3 pregnancies in 10 months, a public divorce, and a brain under physiological siege. The behavior the world judged was not purely a character flaw. It was partly chemistry. She was freshly single and publicly humiliated, and she was about to meet a man whose survival skills were even more complicated than her own. The man who used a powerful synthetic opioid on his wedding day. Dakota Mortensen was 17 years old, playing basketball in Caldwell, Idaho, when his knees hurt after practice and a teammate offered him something for the pain. He did not know what pain pills were. He took them. And in that gymnasium on an ordinary afternoon, something shifted in him that would take over a decade to undo. I remember I had 0 pain. It was the best thing in the world. So right when practice ended, I texted him and said, "Hey, whatever those were, get me as many of those as you can." The escalation was fast and textbook. Pain pills led to oxycodone at $50 per pill. When that became too expensive, substance offered the same effect at a fraction of the cost. Then a powerful synthetic opioid. He broke into cars to fund his habit and drained his parents' savings. College basketball scholarships disappeared. He married his high school sweetheart, and on the day of their wedding, he used a powerful synthetic opioid, telling himself it was going to be the last time. It was not. The marriage lasted a year and a half before his wife walked into the guest bathroom and found him heating substance on aluminum foil. Shortly after, by his own account, he purchased a gram of substance with the specific intention of overdosing. His cousin, who happened to work at a rehabilitation center, called him before he could act on it. That phone call is the reason Dakota Mortensen is still alive. I did not want anything anymore. I was fine with nothing. My purpose was just to get high. If I could fall into it, anyone could. He entered rehab, got sober, and moved to Utah. He was 6 months clean when he met Taylor at a gathering in the summer of 2022. She was freshly divorced and rebuilding from nothing. He had recently stopped wanting to die. When he talks about that first meeting, he does not describe falling in love. He describes being afraid. On Mormon Wives, he eventually said he had always been concealing things to protect himself and wished he had been honest, but it was too late. The man audiences watched lie and hide was not a villain by nature. He was someone who had survived a decade of addiction by hiding things and had never learned how to stop. 6 months into sobriety, a broken marriage behind him, and the most complicated relationship of his life ahead. And Dakota had no idea the worst night of that relationship would one day be watched by millions. 1 year sober, 1 arrest, 1 show built on both. Most people who followed the arrest story never got the part that happened in the weeks immediately after it. Taylor did not go quiet. She went public about something most people in her position would have hidden completely. She was starting from scratch in ways that had nothing to do with the charges. She was living alone for the first time in her entire life. After a marriage that began at 19, she had moved directly from her parents' home into a life built around a husband, children, and a community. When that structure collapsed, she found herself sitting alone in a house with 2 small children and no script for what came next. Within weeks, she started Zoloft and began EMDR therapy, a clinically recognized treatment that uses bilateral stimulation to help the brain reprocess traumatic memories, originally developed for combat veterans with PTSD, and now considered one of the most effective tools for exactly the kind of layered trauma Taylor was carrying. Taylor Frankie Paul, TikTok, March 2023. I also got on Zoloft to help with my depression and anxiety. I also started EMDR therapy, and so far have loved it. We are just working on all the trauma and going to start diving into how we can cope with it, starting with my divorce. 1 year after the arrest, she reached 12 months of sobriety. 2 years later, Hulu gave her an executive producer credit. 3 years later, ABC made her the Bachelorette. The arc from that driveway to that casting announcement is either the most remarkable personal rebuilding in recent reality television history or proof that the industry rewards a certain kind of chaos. Possibly, it is both. She was clean, on probation, rebuilding her public image episode by episode, and ABC called with the offer that would either be the most important opportunity of her life or the most complicated one. The Bachelorette they were never supposed to cast. When ABC announced Taylor Frankie Paul as the lead of Bachelorette Season 22 in September 2025, Bachelor Nation did not know how to respond. Not because they were outraged, but because the rules of who the Bachelorette was supposed to be had been completely rewritten without warning. She had never competed on The Bachelor. She came with a domestic violence guilty plea, an ongoing co-parenting war, a swinging scandal that had run in national news, and a following built entirely on chaos. There is this certain stigma that The Bachelorette should be a little bit more classy. I am like, okay, how do I make this work? I am a co-parent. I have 2 baby daddies. My children and my home base are here. Can I travel that long? She revealed the casting on Alex Cooper's Call Her Daddy podcast rather than in a traditional press release, which was itself a statement about who Taylor was and what audience ABC was targeting. She told Cooper she had dismissed the idea as a complete joke given her history. She had not told Dakota before the podcast dropped, and he found out the same Wednesday the rest of the world did. By 2025, Time magazine had listed her among the 100 most influential creators in the world. The woman a Bravo casting director once called too boring was now one of the most significant content personalities on the planet. TMZ reported that Bachelorette producers were blindsided by the domestic investigation that surfaced days before the season 22 premiere. But a separate well-placed source told the outlet the network is guilty of willful blindness, meaning the red flags were visible, the information was available, and the decision to proceed was made anyway. Taylor told the Salt Lake City Tribune something that took real courage to say publicly. It is really nobody's place to tell me I cannot go to church because I sin. It is something between the church and me. We are still Mormon, whether you like it or not. She showed up to every commitment and took it hour by hour. But in Draper, Utah, 3 children were waiting for a version of normal that their parents have never once agreed on. 3 kids, 3 fathers, and the question nobody is asking. Take away the call logs, the body cam footage, the Bachelorette press tour, and the police report. And what remains are 3 children who had no choice about any of this and no way to opt out of it. Taylor's 2 oldest, Indy Mae Paul and Ocean Paul, share a father in Tate Paul, who has, by every available account, made the most dignified exit of anyone in this entire story. He declined to appear on Mormon Wives, kept the children off the show, has since remarried, had a 3rd child, and rebuilt a private life that stands in surreal contrast to everything happening around him. We are great. We go to soccer games every week together, and we talk daily. We do not have to be friends, but we are. Then there is Ever True Mortensen, born March 19, 2024, who turned 2 years old in the exact week his parents' situation became international news. His mother is under active police investigation. His father is the subject of child abuse allegations. DCFS has been contacted multiple times, and court-ordered psychological evaluations have been mandated but not completed. Taylor and Dakota are communicating only through an intermediary with no direct contact for 3 weeks. What the internet's predictable split between sympathy and judgment completely missed is the more uncomfortable question underneath. What psychological inheritance are these 3 children actually receiving? Indy and Ocean are growing up with their family's most painful moments permanently on a streaming platform. Ever is growing up with 2 parents who cannot be in the same room. He is 2 years old, and this is the only world he has ever known. I have been criticized, I have been judged, and I have been rejected. But anyone that takes the time to know me will see that I am a genuine person who means well and deserves another chance at love. Whether the adults in his life can build something stable for Ever True is the only question in this entire story that genuinely matters. And it is the one question that no camera, no court order, and no streaming platform can answer. What you just watched is the story of a woman who went from a driveway arrest to the Oscar red carpet in 3 years and somehow kept getting back up every single time. Drop your honest thoughts in the comments because this story is nowhere near finished.